Whether you're buying something small on Marketplace or something big like a house, negotiation is one of the best techniques that you can use to avoid paying more than you probably should be paying for a product, and in some circumstances might actually give you the edge to get a product or item cheaper than what the person selling it is actually wanting. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reese, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the power of negotiation and how developing this technique can see you saving a lot of money in the long run and potentially making a lot of money in the different aspects of how you can use negotiation as a power to benefit you. Story time. Do you have what's called the upper hand? I purchased my house for about 425,000 Australian dollars. And the vendor or the seller wanted $470,000, and this was during a time where house prices were growing. Now, based on similar house sale prices around the same time as when I bought my house in that area, I'm fairly confident that I bought the house for significantly less than what the vendor probably could have gotten for the house. The reason why I was able to purchase the house for this cheaper price comes down to a few different factors. Number one is that I quickly identified through the real estate agent that the vendor needed to sell the house as soon as possible. The vendor had signed a contract for a new property somewhere else in the local area, and they needed the funds from the house that I was going to buy off them in order to move and actually confirm the sale of that house. And secondly, it became very clear very quickly that they weren't getting the attention they wanted at the price that they had set. Now, this could have been for a number of reasons as well, but I definitely was in a position to basically give the vendor everything they needed. So a short settlement period, a large deposit, guaranteeing that the money that I'd be putting forward would be good, solid, hard cash. Like, that's a big deposit. If the deposit falls through, that vendor's going to be pretty happy keeping my deposit, probably even be able to keep the other house. But the point here was that what I was offering was everything that ticked their books, tick their checklists, everything they needed. The point was that even though it looked like I was the one, like, yeah, I'm thirsty for this house, I offered them something significantly lower than what they were wanting. So they were asking for around that 450 to 470 mark. I offered 415,000, and it became very apparent to me very quickly when they started negotiating at that point. They didn't say, no, that's just being disregarded altogether. They basically said, all right, 415 is your offer. We're looking for something around this much. What can you do? And from that moment, I knew that I was in the ballpark of where they were willing to let it go for, not what they wanted, but willing to let it go for, and ultimately that I had the upper hand. The factor of having the upper hand came down to a few different things. So let's break it down. Number one, I was in a position to do this. I knew that I had the time, the money to do it properly. So I looked at lots of houses over the course of a year, and I made many offers within my budget frame. And the offers were reasonable. There was nothing that I was just completely lowballing the shit out of people. And there were no houses that I was going for that I probably shouldn't have been. These were all houses within my price range, which in Australia, $425,000 for a house might seem like a lot of money, or it might not seem like a lot of money, but it's a reasonably priced house. So I was prepared. I had put the time and effort into understanding what my capabilities were, and with that gave me an edge. I didn't get emotionally attached to any of these houses. I knew there'd be another one down the line. Might not be my forever home that I was purchasing, but nonetheless, I put care and effort into all of the steps, which ultimately gave me the strongest ability to negotiate for the house that I did end up buying. Now, you might say, Reese, if you continuously lowball people or bid well under the asking price, then someone else would just come along and scoop it up. And that may be the case for 95% of all of the house sales that happen here in Australia anyway. But ultimately, there will be times when these opportunities arise. And if you're aware of it and you know how to ask the questions that you need to ask, you'll be able to set yourself up in a position that will put you in a pretty good negotiation standpoint. And you will potentially be able to scoop up that deal without causing yourself too much stress. I didn't get to a point of desperation, and I eventually scooped up a deal that was a great house in a great neighborhood for a great price. And mark my words, I will do it again. And I'll be making a video about the forever home that I purchased in the near future, doing the exact same thing that I did to obtain this one. On top of this, I'm still negotiating when it comes to my investment property. This comes down to things like negotiating the rent that I'm going to be receiving from my tenants, all the way to me calling my bank every 3 months and drilling them down and offering, well, not offering, but telling them, hey, I've had offers of competitive loans from this bank, and this bank. I might be saying that that's what the website says they're offering right now, and I'm going to jump ship when I'm probably not going to. And they have slowly reduced my rate over the course of me having my property. Here is the real world example. Since I purchased my property, I have reduced my loan by 1.1%. And that is outside of any fluctuations that are automated, such as the government reducing the cash rate or the banks deciding that the variable rate is going to go up or down. This is me making a 15-minute phone call to reduce that loan, and me being persistent every 3 months to do that, and me reducing that. I've worked it out, and it's going to save me about $4,000 a year, which when you do that over a 30-year period, which is how long the loans are here in Australia, it's about 40 grand for making a 15-minute phone call once every 3 months. Power of negotiation. I'm going to leave the house story at that. There's one other component of negotiating that I want to touch on, and that is negotiating a pay rise or your pay increases. The book I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi is the prime example of exactly how you should be negotiating with your employer to basically lock in pay raises of significant amounts when you're at a job. The actual script in the book starts on page 156. I've left a link in the description below as to where you can go purchase it. I'm sure that any bookstore in your local area has it as well. It's a fantastic book. It's worded incredibly, and I highly recommend you read it. But now let's dive into it. And here's the real world example again. Out of that script, I put together my own little script and I put it into action, and within the span of 6 months at this job, I worked there for less than 3 years, went from a salary of $62,000 to $80,000. This is not my current job. This is my previous job. And that's not pocket change. I increased my salary by $18,000 essentially by following the script. Was I worth that pay rise? I truly believe that I was. Was it hard to achieve? Yes and no. It took time and it took persistence, but it would never have happened if I didn't try to negotiate it. The outcome and the point of doing this was I gave it a go and I pushed for it and I got what I was trying to achieve. And it was a great moment for me to understand how powerful something like this can be. So I highly encourage you to read the book. I'm not getting promoted or anything for recommending it. I read it and I love it. And that's what this channel is about, is to provide resources about things that can be useful to others. But I highly encourage you to just understand the power of negotiation, because I've just given two real world examples of how I purchased a house much cheaper than what I probably should have paid for it, and how I got a pay increase. And you bet your bucket that I did it with my current job as well, but because I'm working there, I'm not going to disclose that information. But the point is it's so powerful having that understanding and having the upper hand is what I'll call it. I love this. I'm going to do this the rest of the video, the upper hand. It's so important. Just understand that. All right, moving on. So now for the juicy stuff. If you're still with me, here's how to capitalize on the power of negotiation and practice. Start with the easy picks. Start with things like Marketplace, or Gumtree here in Australia is one of the websites we use that basically is like a Craigslist, basically where you can offer and negotiate to buy things or sell things with people online. If you're looking to buy something, absolutely practice through this method. The other way, or the other stream you can practice through, is things like your phone provider. That's a good example. Here in Australia, that's a big one. Definitely negotiate on what you're paying for your phone service and your phone company and your internet company as well. I highly encourage just taking the time to give them a call and say, what can you do for me? I've seen this offer, and this offer from this place, and I think I'm paying too much. I'm looking at potentially moving to a new service provider unless you can do something better. And they will generally give you some form of discount. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Same with the Facebook Marketplace. You need a new coffee table and you're looking on Facebook Marketplace. Lowball the shit out of them. Start with that. Just lowball the shit out of them. Do it 10 times. You might get no responses. You might get one, and you might get someone who goes, yep, straight away. Or you might get someone who goes, oh, how about meet me halfway? Lowball them again. half that and just continuously work them down until you start succeeding at it. You'll start getting better and better and better, and then work your way up to these more controversial and more difficult conversations. The two other examples I want to touch on that are definitely good for practice is my gym membership. So I have negotiated my gym membership almost to half the value of what I know people are paying for the exact same membership. We're talking an annual subscription at a local 24-hour gym. I'm sure you have them. And I negotiated. I said, this gym's offering this much, this gym's offering this much, beat it. And they did. And then the following year, they tried to increase the premium. I said, nah, I'm moving unless you keep it at that price. And I've done that for the last 5 years, where their premiums have slowly increased to almost, I think, between $800 and $1,000, depending on the format that you pay in. And I'm paying roughly $500 to $600 a year, which might seem like a lot, but for the gym fitness, we're not getting into it. The point is it's significantly less than others that are paying for that service. And finally, your easiest option is a physical retailer. So any electronic shop, go in there and say, hey, I've seen competitive offers here, here, and here. Can you match it or can you beat it? And generally they'll beat it by 5 or 10%. If it's something that you're actually going to be purchasing, like a new computer, microphone, lights, camera, microphone, computer, you get the point, negotiate, say, beat it. And they will. I guarantee that 9 times out of 10 they will. And if they don't, you have at least attempted to practice. When you have time on your hands, you have the upper hand. That's the main thing you need to understand, is if you're in no rush, you have the upper hand. So put that into practice. Now let's just quickly touch on a few things or circumstances where it probably isn't going to work. Negotiation is really difficult and it's something that you should tread lightly doing. A good example where you don't want to lowball the shit out of someone just every single time is in real estate. If a real estate agent catches wind that you're just there to basically offer the pits of the pits, they're going to blacklist you. I personally would continue to lowball the shit out of them. I'm a customer and by law they have to hand my offers in for a property, but it's something just to understand that you don't want to piss people off. If it's someone that you're never going to see again on Marketplace, who cares? Lowball the shit out of them. If you get the item for that, you're laughing. But if you don't, it doesn't matter anyway. Whereas if it's a house that you're really trying to get your hands on, you still have to be reasonable and practical about it. Definitely negotiate, but just understand that it's not the best time to always lowball the shit out of someone. If you're desperate and what you're purchasing is something like a one-off collectible or something that you must have for your collection and it's going to add value to your life, this is where, again, negotiation can be a little bit iffy. If it's something that's not worth risking, it's something that you definitely need, want to buy, purchase, whatever it is, sometimes it's not the best decision to negotiate. Generally, if you have the upper hand, if you have time, and if you have the capacity to negotiate, you have all the bargaining power, you have all the upper hand moments. So that's the time to do that. You should be able to determine pretty quickly the scenarios where you can and can't negotiate. Generally, if it's a store selling a product that lots of other stores sell, that's a great time to do it. Generally, if it's a one-off, like I said, consider negotiating versus just buying it in that moment, because if you look back in 20 years and go, oh, I was being silly, I shouldn't have negotiated for a little bit of a discount, weigh up your options. I'm going to say no more. I encourage you to develop the skill because it can be confronting, but it is something that will definitely add value to your life, and it's something that will allow you to get ahead, even chip away slowly towards the bigger purchases. It's something worth learning how to do, and I think most people should have some sense of how to do it, because I feel like some people get taken advantage of. With that being said, overall, I hope you learned something in today's video, and I hope that it was insightful. I hope I put it out in a way that made sense, and I hope that you definitely got something from the video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. It really does help the channel out. And as always, I will see you in the next one.